The first thing people noticed was not the roar of the motorcycles or the leather vests stitched with the feared Hell's Angels emblem. It was the boy's eyes, wide, trembling, and carrying a quiet panic that didn't belong to someone so small. On a hot afternoon where the road shimmered like molten glass, a little boy stood at the edge of a gas station parking lot, his hand raised in a strange, almost accidental gesture. To anyone else, it looked meaningless. To the men who lived by signals, loyalty, and unspoken codes, it meant everything. And what happened next would shock an entire town and quietly restore faith in humanity where no one expected it. Before the story goes any further, take a moment right now. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and unexpected heroes, please like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps stories like this reach the hearts that need them most. The boy's name was Eli, and he was only 8 years old, though life had already carved shadows beneath his eyes. He lived in a small, forgotten town where people rarely looked twice at one another. His world was a narrow apartment with peeling paint, a fridge that was often empty, and a man who was supposed to protect him but instead taught him fear. Eli had learned early how to be quiet, how to make himself small, and how to survive by reading moods rather than words. That day, his mother had sent him out to buy bread with crumpled bills, hoping the errand would keep him away from the tension building back home. What she didn't know was that the tension had already followed him, like a shadow that refused to let go. At the gas station, the sound of engines thundered in unison as a group of Hell's Angels rolled in, their presence heavy, almost cinematic. People stiffened. Some turned away. Others stared too long and then quickly looked down. These men carried reputations forged by rumors, headlines, and fear. Leather jackets bore scars of long roads and longer lives. To most, they were danger incarnate. To Eli, they were simply loud strangers, who somehow felt safer than the silence waiting for him at home. Eli's heart pounded as he stood there, fingers curling and uncurling. He remembered something he'd seen months earlier on a flickering TV in a neighbor's apartment. A documentary about biker clubs and how they used hand signals to communicate when words weren't safe. One signal stuck in his mind, burned there by instinct more than understanding. A subtle movement, a plea without sound. His body acted before his fear could stop him. He raised his hand, formed the signal clumsily, and held it for just a second too long. One of the bikers noticed. He was a large man with a weathered face, gray threaded through his beard, eyes sharp with years of watching the world closely. His name was Marcus, though most knew him by a road name earned long ago. He had seen many things in his life: violence, loss, brotherhood, betrayal. But what he saw in that boy's eyes made his chest tighten in a way he didn't expect. It wasn't curiosity, it wasn't mischief, it was fear wrapped in desperate hope. Marcus felt something ancient stir inside him. Long before the leather and the patch, he had been a scared kid too, raised in chaos, wishing someone would notice. He slowed his bike, then he stopped. The world around them seemed to hold its breath. The other bikers noticed Marcus's change in posture, the way his gaze locked onto the boy. They followed his line of sight. They didn't laugh. They didn't shrug. They understood. Whatever that kid had done, it wasn't a joke. Eli felt his knees weaken when the massive bike came to a halt near him. Every warning he had ever heard screamed in his head. But Marcus didn't advance. He simply crouched slightly, lowering himself, softening his presence without even realizing it. The noise of the engines faded as the others cut them off, one by one, until the parking lot fell into an uneasy quiet. People watched from a distance, expecting trouble. What they saw instead confused them. Marcus studied Eli carefully, noticing the too large shirt, the dirt under his nails, the way his shoulders tensed as if bracing for impact. Years of instinct told him this wasn't a prank or a dare. This was a child asking for help the only way he knew how. Marcus nodded once, a small movement meant only for the boy. It was enough. Eli's eyes filled with tears he had been holding back for weeks. Without making a scene, Marcus signaled to one of his brothers, a man known for his calm head and quiet strength. The group shifted subtly, forming a loose barrier that blocked the view from the street, not to threaten, but to protect. They moved like a unit, Practiced and precise, their reputation built on loyalty more than chaos. Eli's story came out in fragments, not in words, but in signs Marcus recognized too well. The flinch when footsteps approached, the bruises hidden beneath sleeves, the way Eli kept glancing toward the road, terrified of being followed. Marcus felt anger rise, hot and dangerous, but he kept it contained. This wasn't about rage. This was about the boy. They didn't confront anyone. They didn't make noise. Instead, Marcus did something that stunned every onlooker. He called for help, not from his club, but from authorities he rarely trusted. This wasn't about pride or image. This was about doing what was right. While they waited, Marcus stayed with Eli, sitting on the curb, his massive presence turned gentle, shielding the boy from curious eyes. The other bikers stood watch, silent sentinels. People whispered. Phones came out. The story was already changing in the retelling, but the truth was quieter and far more powerful. When help arrived, they listened. They saw what Marcus saw. They took Eli somewhere safe. As he was led away, he turned back once. Fear still there, but now mixed with something new. Relief. He gave a small, shaky wave. Marcus nodded again, his jaw tight. The town buzzed for days afterward. Headlines twisted the story into something sensational, unable to reconcile fearsome bikers with compassion. But beneath the noise, something shifted. People who had crossed the street to avoid those men now wondered if they had been wrong. Parents hugged their children tighter. Strangers spoke to each other more gently. Marcus and his brothers rode out of town the next morning, leaving behind nothing but tire marks and a lesson no one expected. For them, it wasn't a heroic act. It was simply answering a call, a signal. Weeks later, Marcus received word through quiet channels that Eli was safe, healing, smiling again, learning what it felt like to sleep without fear. The knowledge settled in Marcus's chest like a warmth he hadn't felt in decades. He didn't need thanks. He didn't need recognition. He had been that boy once. This time, someone had answered. As the road stretched endlessly ahead, Marcus thought about how the world liked things simple, good and bad, heroes and villains. But real life lived in the gray. Sometimes salvation came from the least expected place, roaring on two wheels, wearing leather and scars. If this story has touched your heart even a little, if it made you pause and believe again in unexpected kindness, please take a moment now to like the video, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to the channel. Your engagement helps keep these stories alive. And before this story ends, I have one special request. Please comment below with a single word, hope. Because hope is what saved Eli, and hope is what reminds us that help can come from anywhere, even from those the world misunderstands. The road doesn't always lead where we expect, but sometimes, just sometimes, it leads exactly where it's needed most.